So I talked about the very first time I ever met a guitar builder in another video. And now I want to talk about the first time I met a guitar builder that I would know throughout much of my young life and still know a little bit to this day. And that is the first time I ever met Philip Bruce Clay at Rarebird Guitar Laboratory. Now, just like my other story, I remember exactly where it was. He had a shop on 17th Avenue right by City Park in Denver. Probably would have been 85 or 86. And give or take. I met Bruce, and I remember that wasn't an area back then that you'd want to go and hang around. There wasn't a lot of stuff. We already talked about how rent in Denver was very different than it was in 1985 or 86 than it is in 2024. 2025. So anyway, I remember finding Bruce's spot. I was with my dad, and we were doing, I think we were at like a play or something, because my dad, this old hippie. So we were at some play, and it was I remember it was around Christmas time, because I was visiting my dad for Christmas. And I saw this shop next door, and I looked, I peeked in through the window, and man, there was all these guitars and things, and I'm like, I got to come back when these guys are open. Like I said, it was at night. Got to come back the next day, so I convinced my dad to take me down there the next day, or when the next day they were open. And I met Philip Bruce Clay, and gosh, it was another one of those things where it was like the first time I ever saw a guitar building shop, only even better, because there were all these guys that were like, they smelled like cigarettes and beer, and you felt like you were getting away with something when you walked in there. And these long-haired dudes who were covered with sawdust, and they were making electric guitars, and they had amps all over the place, and they were just these wacky guys who I would go on to meet several of them later on and hang out with some of them back after I started building myself. But anyway, there was all these pictures on the wall of like guys who Bruce built guitars for, and all these crazy guitars that Bruce made. And they had bird names: the Sparrowhawk and the Tellyhawk and the Stratohawk and the Hawk and all kinds of other stuff. And they were all round, and they looked like they were from the 70s and cool, and they looked like Alembics, and they looked like BC Riches, and they were all neck through, and they had lots of laminations, and they were just cool, man. They really sparked my interest. And I remember telling Bruce, I'm like, man, I would love to do this. What do you think is a good way to start building guitars? And he said, I tell you what, the best thing to do is not do it. So I remember I bought some stuff from him then. I can't remember what it was, just little stuff. And Bruce has had lots of shops since then, and has moved a handful of times since then. I went to that shop on 17th Avenue again. I think it was right after I saw the ad in the back of Guitar World, or Guitar Player. Learn to build your own guitar at Roberto Venn. I remember I went back into to Bruce, and I said, I'm going to Roberto Venn. I can't remember how old I was then. I'm going to Roberto Venn, and I'm going to show you, Mr. Old Fart. And he's like, well, I still think you're a stupid kid for doing it, but I tell you what, if you do it, I'll give you a job when you get back. Now, to me, at the time, that was a big, big deal. Moving, my life moving away, or the older I get, the more now I realize that he's made that same deal to lots of guys. I've met a lot of them. But it was a big deal to me, and I'm not going to say it wasn't a big deal for Bruce, but it was a big, big deal for me. And so, I would go in, and I would when I would visit my dad in the summertime and in the winter when I would come out, I would go and bother Bruce, and I'd visit him and hang out with him. And I felt like I was getting away with something every time I went. And so I would hang out with Bruce, and he would tell me, you're a fool for doing this. You shouldn't do it. You should get a real job. But I went to Roberto Venn, and true to his word, when I got done, I moved back to Colorado. I stayed in Texas for a little bit, and my dad said, hey, if you want to go to college, I'll pay for you to go to University of Colorado. So I did that. And when I got in, I said, hey, Bruce, I'm back in town, and remember when you said you'd give me a job? And he said, yeah, and he did. And I started working with Bruce Clay. And I worked with Bruce in the early 90s for a while. I remember the very first thing that I did was he was just moving shops, and I was moving to this shop not far from my house now. And he was building it out still. And so the first thing that I did was I was rolling paint. And I think I painted the bathroom, and I painted a bunch of other stuff. I painted also, I was rolling paint, latex paint on the wall. But it wasn't too long before I started making guitars with Bruce. And you know what? He was right. I was a fool for doing it. And I stopped making guitars after that. I kind of got bored with it. I got tired of it, and you weren't making any money, and that's okay because you were making cool stuff. But one of the problems is you start making other people's stuff, and you start making a lot of other people's stuff, or you start making other people's stuff a lot rather. And you see things that you would do differently, and you start to imagine different. You go, boy, all that stuff I learned at Roberto Van was all. I'm never going to use that again. That was about right. Now that I'm my own, I have my own guitar shop. I do very, very, very few things that Bruce did. Hardly anything that Bruce did is the way we do it. The first handful of guitars that I built like Bruce made. And I liked them, but I like the ones that we make now better. Because it's my own thing. Not because Bruce did it wrong. Not because Roberto Van did it wrong. Just because I want to have my own thing, which is, it's not unique. It's just, it's the way I like to do it. And other people have done it too. You get what I'm saying. You get what I'm driving at. Anyway, every so often I'll hear from Bruce and haven't for a while, but I hope he's doing good. I think he's living in South Colorado now. I think he's mostly retired. Bruce was another Renaissance man. He's always doing stuff. Always. I remember one time I went out to see him. Hadn't seen him for a long time, and he had built this aquarium in his shop, and he had like a salamander in it, like just some fish that he caught, a mud dog or whatever, just fish that he caught, and he put in this homemade shop-made aquarium that he built out of stuff from Home Depot or somewhere like that. I don't even know if Home Depot was a thing back then, but Builder Square or something like that. Anyway, and he was always making stuff. He was always doing stuff. He wanted to build an Earth ship, one of those rammed Earth and tire ships like Dennis Weaver lived in. He would do all kinds of stuff like that, and he was a motivated guy and super gifted guy, and he could do just about anything. He and I got along most of the time. Sometimes we didn't. That's all right. That's just the way it goes. And so Bruce, if you're out there, I hope you're doing good, buddy. And so yeah, there we go. Time I met and hung out with the one and only Rarebird Guitars, Philip Bruce Clay. By the way, great guitar builder name.